Good afternoon. Great to see all of you still here. This is the last speech of today. And I'm actually really excited that we have him with us once more. Matteo, it feels a bit like you were with us last year. You were with us during Christmas, the Christmas Freelance Unlocked. So it feels very essential to have you with us. Matteo Cassese, he started out as a freelancer himself, is now a founder's coach. He has worked with really, really big companies and is going to share some insights on how you guys can actually adapt to AI and thrive. So please welcome him on stage, Matteo Cassese. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. How is the conference so far for you? I hope everything is going great. Yeah, that's the spirit. That is the spirit. So it is my job to conclude today, and it is my job to bring you from this sense of malaise to all the way to Renaissance. And hopefully to take you there on something a little bit more stable than this skateboard here, right? But I think at this time we need all of the help that we can get. So I have recruited help, and the first person that will help us is William Gibson. William Gibson coined the term cyberspace, and he's the author of one of my favorite sci-fi novels, Neuromancer. And I would say 20 years ago, he famously said, "The future is already here. It's just not widely distributed." For the remainder of this talk, we're not going to talk about all of the technicalities of AI, but I would love for you to imagine that we have what they were kind of hyping and promising us, that we have tools that are equally smart than human beings, maybe smarter, and that we can deploy them at scale, and that they are economical to deploy. I understand, I'm asking you for a lot, but the future, let's imagine that the future is already here, okay? So can we do this little experiment? The second guide is one of my favorite people that ever existed, Joseph Campbell. Because we need a storytelling expert and we need a mythologist. Because in order to transition from malaise to Renaissance, we will need to enter a cave. And that is a cave we fear to enter, but in that cave lies the treasure we seek. What is going on, really? Why do we need to enter this cave? Well, the main issue is that we were presented with a narrative around AI and automation that said that menial jobs, factory work, truckers will be replaced. Instead, the robots came for the creatives. They came for the poets. And that's a problem. And it gives us this sense of malaise, this general discomfort of not knowing what is going on, not knowing what will happen next. I don't know if you share this sense with me, and I'm going to ask you, I'm sorry about that, for a show of hands. Like, who here feels that their job is going to change pretty radically very soon? I would say 80 to 90% of the room. Okay. And who feels not so good about it? Just a handful. Just let's say 5%. Okay. Actually, I did this poll earlier, and I got 5% as well in that case. So we're optimists, and that's a good thing. That is a really, really good thing. I'm happy that you're optimists. Now, I'm going to ask you another thing, and I ask you to be very honest with me. Who here has tried some of these tools and they've said, meh, they're not for me? Like, okay, 10%, I would say. And so you're not using them daily, right? They're not a tab open on your computer. They're not part of your workflow. I'm concerned about you. I'm going to look at you because I remember you raised your hand. I'm concerned about you because the future is now. The future is happening. This is happening. Now, no, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's new technologies that disrupt the status quo. I was lucky enough to be witness of the evolution of the web. I was very early. I was creating websites. It was 1993. And I remember following the drama at Microsoft because Bill Gates didn't believe in the web in 1993 and famously waited until 1995 to have an actual internet strategy for Microsoft. Now, Microsoft is way savvier about AI than it had ever been about the internet. But think about it. We can, even the smartest people in the room, might underestimate a phenomenon like this one. The issue that we have, I think, it's simply that our current maps suck, and they suck badly. The longitudinal career, we already saw that the longitudinal career was in trouble. But what is happening right now will definitely put it in the ICU, and I don't know if the career is going to make it. The other thing that is happening, and it's happening very, very clearly, is that there are companies that are going after job descriptions. For instance, in a law firm, the lowest level is a paralegal. And there is a company called CaseText. And what they're doing is they have analyzed the use case of the paralegal, and they've created the perfect AI substitute of a paralegal. So I don't think that in the future there's going to be so many roles with that job description. The same happened in games. 2 years ago, games had this kind of, the bubble burst. There were massive layoffs. Who got laid off? The creatives got laid off. Because the companies realized that, well, the game designer stays in-house, but who can do all the side decoration and fill in the scene and do the non-player characters? Well, we'll train AI to do that. CTOs that I talk with right now, they're still hiring developers, but they're not hiring junior developers. They prefer to actually train a junior AI developer, so actually a language model, rather than hire somebody junior. They will still hire somebody senior. So I think we are in a tricky situation. Now, I want to give you a lens, and through this lens, maybe have a glimmer of hope and stop talking about malaise and start talking about renaissance. But remember, we'll have to go through that cave that we fear to enter. The lens that I propose, and I'm curious what you think about this, is that of the midlife crisis. It feels a little bit like, oh, well, I've bought the house, I achieved the success, etc. But it's a crisis of meaning. Like, who am I? And it doesn't happen at midlife. It happens right now. It might happen in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. I've asked you, the future is now, right? I've asked you to play with me and to imagine that we already have these technologies. And it's that kind of midlife crisis where you start dating somebody much younger than you and you buy a sports car. It's that crisis of meaning where you really are at a crossroads. I think this lens can be helpful to bridge the gap, to make the shift between malaise and renaissance. But who am I to talk about a midlife crisis? Well, I looked back on LinkedIn and I noticed that in my 29 years working, I've changed 8 careers. So I've had at least, let's say, 4 or 5 midlife crises. And I drive a Porsche. So I guess if that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does. Now, we have to get serious, though, about this shift. Because there are casualties. Now, the first casualty is, for me at least, a happy casualty. I think that hustle culture is over. Oh, yes. Now, why do I think that? Well, the real issue, I think, for us in this room is that we are very invested in what we do. And part of our identity is in our output as professionals. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Right. So I just gave you something that is more capable than you at outputting, at creating, at generating. What does that leave you with? An existential crisis, a crisis of meaning. The hustle culture, and hustle culture is a simple term. I could talk to you about Taylorism and Fordism, okay? But it's something that stems from the Industrial Revolution, and it's a pervasive ideology that tells us that more is better. More work, late hours, more Red Bull. But when I give you a technology that is better than you at output, what the hell do you do? If that was the North Star, production, output, productivity, what is the new North Star? The new North Star, it's actually thinking, reflecting, slowing down, observing, strategizing, philosophizing. When we were in the hustle culture, whenever we had a problem, usually we could double down and we could do more and we could flex more and power through. It was an easy answer. When I ask you to stop, slow down, think, philosophize, strategize, that is much harder. We are going from a world that is much simpler to a world that is much harder. We're going from focusing on raw output to refined input. And output, compared to really thinking and giving great input, output is so much easier. And when I talk about input, think about systems thinking, right? A great input creates automatically a good output. This is not the only casualty of the shift from malaise to renaissance. Another important casualty are frameworks, systems, playbooks, ways of solving problems. Don't get me wrong, I love frameworks and I use frameworks all the time. But think about it. If something can be boiled down to a step-by-step, paint-by-numbers instructional video or instructional system, isn't that akin to a prompt? So if I can explain it to a language model, why would I do it? And so frameworks will continue to exist, but I don't think they will have the same values that they had before. So if you want to solve problems in the future, well, you will instruct the language model with the frameworks. What does that leave you with? So they will do the problem solving, they will do the solution. What do? You're going to be busy with principles, unchanging laws of physics, of psychology, of behavioral economics, of markets. Philosophers instead of hustlers. And in this case, focus on the principles rather than the frameworks. It's a big shift because we are very used to accepting information from the outside, processing it, and then giving an output. I'll give you an example. This is the YouTube dashboard, and this is the YouTube dashboard of my YouTube channel, Think with Matteo Cassese. Now, my goal with this channel is to maybe touch the hearts and souls of 3, 4, 5 people every month. That would be a grand result for me. But what Alphabet presents me with is a dashboard of numbers, constantly updated and perfectly gamified, so that my monkey brain can publish a video and then I can hit refresh, what is going on, real-time analytics, all of that. That is a shit use of my brain. That is a horrible use of my brain. That is the worst of frameworks, because I am accepting to become reactive rather than active, reactive rather than creative. We are not meant to look at data. Data at this point goes all the way to the language model, and in many cases, our intention conflicts with the gamification and the power laws that are applied to these dashboards. And so I should completely ignore it, okay? It's not a success metric. All of these, you see the green arrows going up? Yeah, all of that doesn't really matter. But we are so used to reacting to information from the outside in, because it's easier, right? You wake up, you check your emails, oh look, I have a to-do list from people outside of me, and so they can establish what I do. The problem is that if we want to go from malaise to renaissance, the cave that is in front of us, the cave that we fear to enter, is what is our internal motivation? Why do we do what we do? What is inside of us? Are we following could we follow our intuition? What is that? I don't even know what it is. And so the other problem is that, stuff coming from the outside, it's easy, it's there, we can process it, we can react to it. It feeds into our monkey brain. Working from the inside out is way harder, it's much more challenging for us. Well, these are just some examples of the shift that we'll need to make. And I hope you start to get that this is something that will need to happen deep inside of us. I've been talking about mindset. I've not been talking about technology. To me, it's very important that you adopt the technology, that you have an open relationship with the technology. But the important mindset shift that needs to happen for you to go from malaise to renaissance is very simple. We lost the maps. And if you ask me, what is the new map? I'll tell you. There's no map, but there's map making. There is a new skill that every one of us can learn. And I say, you have to learn it. Now, I am no stranger to making mistakes, and I'm no stranger to loving frameworks. Even just 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I thought that the solution to all my problems was building a marketing funnel. Not just a marketing funnel, a copy-paste marketing funnel that worked. Burnt me out, didn't make enough money to sustain itself. What I did, I refocused on my craft. And lo and behold, the craft became my marketing. So instead of trying to solve the problem with the framework, I stopped solving the problem, and the problem solved itself. The same happens to my clients. Frank is a client of mine. He works inside a big corporation. He was following the rules. He stopped following the rules, became an entrepreneur, now is thriving. The same happened to my client, Sophie. She was already an entrepreneur. She was working on a SaaS company, but her heart wasn't in it. All we needed to do was to tap into her intuition. She calls it her inner compass. And lo and behold, she's not building a SaaS business. I'm not saying that SaaS businesses are bad. They're great. Now she's building a movement, a sisterhood of powerful women. SaaS business, sisterhood of powerful women. Funnel focusing on the craft, following orders, becoming an entrepreneur. You can start to see the pattern. And don't get me wrong, I am worried about what is going to happen. And maybe I am even in that 10% that is, well, we saw it before, sorry, the 80% that is worried about what is going on. But I have a little bit of certainty about one specific aspect of the market. And sorry, it's an aspect of the market where I exist. And that is stuff that we do in person is just going to be more and more important in the future. So if I were to give you some investment advice right now, invest in conferences like this one. Invest in retreats. And it doesn't matter what kind of retreat it is. If it's Pilates, ayahuasca, or a business retreat, that's equally important. Services to the person. We are going to try to become more human because the machine is so good at output. It will leave us with one important exercise: be more ourselves. And the way that I'm solving this is having an elevated experience with my clients. And I'm not telling you this because you should do exactly the same. I'm telling you this to start having a glimmer of hope and see how this can be applied. This is my farm in Brandenburg, and this is the garden where I meet with my clients. We sip green tea or coffee, and we ask each other hard questions. I don't think this is an experience that can be automated or changed or optimized. It's not about output, it's about great input, it's about great questions. I want to give you another example, and I want to go in the world of art for that. If I tell you H.R. Giger, little show of hands, does it ring a bell? Oh yes, there are some Giger fans. Just a very small minority, but I would say 5%. Well, let me help you. Won an Oscar for this creature here. This is the alien monster. Now, 3 weeks ago, I was in Switzerland with my best friend. We didn't have time, but I told her, could we please, I saw this on the map, and it's like, there's a Giger museum, can you believe it? Let's go. And she said, I have no idea who Giger is, but let's go. You know, best friends. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a couple of rooms. It's in a little town, it's a delightful town called Gruyère, like the cheese. And it's an idyllic little Swiss town, exactly as you imagine. And then you enter into this world. This, by the way, is called Anima Mia, my soul. Giger never intended to create beautiful art. Those are his words. And he always thought to picture his nightmares, his worst nightmares. And I had the gift of exploring an entire museum created by the author himself while he was still living, with the most extraordinary stuff, like this meeting room for aliens really blew my mind. and later on, outside of the museum, there is a cafe where you can sit on one of those chairs. You can see the rigs here around me, and you can see this incredible scenario. Now, Giger is one of those one-of-a-kind artists that created a world, and created a world for us to inhabit. I think that we need to all become more like Giger. Let's strike that. We need to all become like Giger. Imagine for a second that this extraordinary artist was following the good artist framework. It's the 70s, right? What's hot? Neon patterns, floral patterns. Imagine that he asked for permission, like, no, I don't have permission to, picture aliens or do anything that is evocative or sexual. That would have been a disaster. We all need to learn to be more ourselves, to be more in a way, artistic. And to work from the inside out, Giger was painting his nightmares. And there is something that I hope we continue cherishing for generations, and I hope that you visit this little town. I'm about to conclude. For questions, we have the little QR codes at the sides. I'll give you a summary and then a couple of quotes that I think can help us conclude this experience and have somewhat of a way forward. But let's go through this shift from malaise to renaissance. It's not about hustle anymore. It's about reflection, philosophizing, thinking. It's not about frameworks anymore. They're useful, but they're not for us. We need to work on principles. Output, which has been our measure of productivity, it doesn't interest me anymore. Productivity doesn't interest me anymore. Our search for meaning is way more important. And finally, we don't have any maps. There aren't any good maps at this point. But we can all collectively learn the skill of map making. How do we conclude? Well, I brought a book. Well, I brought another book, and actually that's a surprise for later. If you ask really hard questions, you will get one of these books. This book is called The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and it's from a guy called Rick Rubin. I'm not sure it rings a bell, but it's becoming quite popular. And you certainly know Rick for the music. He's a music producer of everybody, from Johnny Cash to Red Hot Chili Peppers to the Beastie Boys to Run DMC, Public Enemy, Stop Me. And I think that Rick gives us somewhat of a guide for these complicated times. And he writes, in terms of priority, inspiration comes first. You come next. The audience comes last. The work reveals itself as you go. I've never heard it said so crisp. If this was a framework, the audience would be first, the messaging second, fuck inspiration, give me the money. It's another world. I think this, if you're looking for a map, this is as close as it gets. To part ways, I want to leave you with this quote from Zora Neale Hurston, anthropologist and novelist. There are ears that ask questions and ears that answer. I think that if we allow to imagine that the future is already here, we enter that cave with all the discomfort that it requires to do the work from the inside out, to tap into our intuition, whatever that is. We can go really quickly from years that ask questions to answering them, and we can have a great time going from malaise to renaissance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matteo. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, the best way would be actually to scan this QR code, because we have a few minutes for questions, I guess. But I've prepared for you a surprise. We could have an online Q&A, like an hour Zoom call together, and continue this discussion and hear more from you, because make it an interactive session. So I'd love for you to join me next week. Just scan up there.
Fantastic. So make sure to scan that code. And maybe one very important question that was asked is where to start?
Where to start is slowing down. It's quite challenging. because we are in this hustle, bustle, new proposal, have I posted on LinkedIn, did the newsletter go out, am I getting any requests, etc. But maybe carve out 15 minutes a day without input, maybe make it 30 minutes, make it an hour, make it early in the morning, make it before picking up the phone maybe.
So making it a priority, you say?
Starting to make listening to yourself a priority and forgetting about that thing with the black mirror screen that is absorbing every moment of discomfort. So the moment that our brain says, you're about to enter the cave you fear to enter, we immediately compensate with something. And we have the perfect, convenient society to compensate for everything. And unfortunately, this is how our brain is wired. And there's entire product teams that are exploiting how our brain is working. So it's really hard. It's supposed to be hard, unfortunately.
So do you have a hack? Like, does it work best for you if you do it first thing in the morning?
It's more of a habit of just finding your own way of getting bored. And once you are bored, you know that you're there. And if you endure that boredom, then there's something. And that something will be individual. It's going to be your map-making ability. But it's going to be after a certain amount of silence, a certain amount of lack of input, a certain amount of... And for everybody, it will be a different thing. Some people will be rock climbing, some people will be doing Pilates, some people will be doing ayahuasca. It's up to you. Every solution is great.
Thank you. How can society ensure there is a path to become senior when people can't work as juniors anymore? Somebody asks.
I think, since I just mentioned that the career path is broken, right? The career path is broken because education is broken as well. Like, they're interdependent. Basically, what turns out is that we only need physicists and philosophers right now. So people that are, or maybe engineers, so people that have had an instruction deep into thought. Maybe also people that study law as well. Like all of these educational tracks that are about thinking. So thinking about thinking is, called philosophy, by the way, is the thing, basically. And I think we can all just, get really excited about it again. We don't need an institution to give us a degree about it. And I think it's going to be more challenging because all of the junior stuff you'll have to do on your own, but it will be an incentive. Matthew Mottler was saying it as a conclusion of his presentation yesterday. Every single one of us is already the best in the world at being themselves. Okay? Every single one of us has a unique story, a unique background, a unique combination of genes, of experiences, etc. It's just how do we bring that to the market? Then that is a big challenge.
Definitely. And maybe to wrap things up, because I like this question, thinking is darn hard and it needs jumping a lot of inner hurdles. We need a society to enable and encourage a safe place to be human. How do you think we can make that happen?
In places like this one. Exactly in places like this one. So for the last two people that asked the two hardest questions, I'd love to give you one of these books. So come to the stage and either Neuromancer or The Creative Act are yours. And do join the extended Q&A next week. I'd love to continue the conversation, continue ideally Freelance Unlocked.
Fantastic. Well,
fantastic.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. Thanks for having me. So great.
Thank you so much.
Matteo Cassese.
Thank you.